Hi everyone, good morning. I hope you're all having a really terrific day. Well, this is Thursday morning and afternoon. I've been doing that a lot lately. This is Thursday afternoon, and I thought what I'd do is just this cute little small, quick kind of hurry up, kind of in a couple of parts little bird painting. And what I'm doing right now is I'm taking some water because I want a very blurred background. Because we want the bird to stand out, and I want the background to be blurred, like there's all things in the background, but we don't know exactly what it is, type of thing. So I'm going to take some different colors here, and when I put them in, sorry, this is a piece that I took out of my block that I made, so it's not secured very good, so I'm going to have to hold on to it. Just something I wanted to use up some of the paper, so got a little too much on that. But what we want here is very blurred, so it's going to be very wet. The wet washes are what makes the blurry kind of backgrounds. And then within it, I'm going to swirl around some reds, some burnt sienna, take some out for white, little white areas. I'm going around I only wet the paper where I want this wash, which is not the bird. It's all around the bird and all around the tops of the of this whole picture. So we're just gonna, oops, that was pretty strong. All right, I didn't want that much there of yellow. So we'll just kind of take it out by wetting our brush, taking the paint out. What I'll do actually is use my paper towel, because we can amount to the same thing by doing that. All right, so I'm coming over here. It's kind of reddish and brownish kind of background, lighter areas. I'm trying to hope these little pieces of tape would hold down the paper, but apparently not. So another way you can do it is swirling, okay? We can just kind of swirl all around, and it will give you that, definitely that blurred kind of background. And we're taking out a few white spot areas. I want to get a little green. It's getting a little dried up over here now, so I'm trying to work pretty fast. A round tip brush works pretty good for this. You can use whatever you like. Sometimes people like, everybody has their own preferences of brushes that they like to use. So, and it doesn't matter if we go over some of the areas that on this paper. Doesn't matter, because this is just a blurred background is all it is. A nice blurry background. So that your eyes have like the indication of something, trees or something, your mind and your eyes will do so much when it looks at these things. So we're just kind of swirling things around, taking some paint out here, taking some out there. And in one corner, we want to have it, a little too much water on my paints. Want it a little darker, so right over here in this little area, and right at the top going across. This will be a part 1 and 2. I don't want to do it all in one sitting. And swirl it around and whatever, swish it around. And there we go. We just have these areas like that, because what's going to go down here underneath Although I think I will wet this down here, and this is going to be pine branches down here, so, but what we can do is we can wet it with some water or color, it doesn't matter, because, you know, some sort of greenish, darkish color, because we're going to be putting in pine branches. I don't want it to be too dark, so I want the branches, the pine branches, to be able to show through when I do it. Whoop! I went to grab my paint and the whole thing just flew over here. Happy accidents, that's what they're called. So I want to just, all I was doing was just getting a little color on the paper. So let's not, so I don't want it to be too dark. So I'm taking some water and I'm just pulling some of the color out that I put in. Good, that's how I wanted it. The bird, I believe, will be in a different, will be in part 2. Need a little more darker areas here. Watercolor always dries very dark, very light. So I used to paint in acrylics for years. I did for years and years and years. And when I switched over to this, I often I'll be talking and then I'll realize, no, that was acrylic. No, watercolor dries light, considerably lighter, as a matter of fact. So there, I just wanted to have, okay, the blue, this is going to be a bluebird. So I would need all this to dry here. So what I'm going to do is on my branch, I'm going to get a very light, watered down, kind of brownish color that I'm going to, on dry paper. I did not wet the branch yet. I don't want it to bleed into everything. So I'm just going to put a very light wash down first and even go over that again. Take some of it out. Just want a very light wash first. And again, this is watercolor. So we're just getting some bottom layers, so to speak, on our painting here. The first layers of things. And then with some, it's a little wet, but we're going to just go like, I'm going to darken the underside, of course, because it would be darker. And just kind of dab, so to speak. It's, you know, water on my brush and water in my paints. It's actually a little too much water in those. So I'm just kind of dabbing the bottom side of the branch. It'll always be a bit darker down there on the bottom part of the branch, and on, you know, one side of the branches that are coming down, they'll be a little darker in some areas. And I don't mind if some things, I'm not being super particular here, because I don't mind if some areas blend with other areas, because this is a little bit of a loose painting. So, you know, get some darks in some places, some lights in others. We've got the light coming from the right, actually. From the left, I'm sorry. Well, geez, this afternoon I'm backwards. I'm not sure. Oh, boy. You have to laugh at yourself, folks. If you don't, you're going to have problems. So don't be afraid to laugh at yourself at the stupid things that you say when you want to say the other. It happens a lot. Oh, too good. It keeps you from not being too serious about yourself. We all make mistakes. We all, especially when you get a little older, you really learn how to laugh at yourself and don't take yourself quite as serious as you used to. See, this is already dried quite light. You can't really see it. So, and I'm dabbing because wood is knobby and, you know, all that. It's not just, most of the time, branches and everything, they're not these flat, totally smooth, perfect things. They're knobby and, you know, all kinds of stuff. So you don't want to make it look super perfect here because this is a painting. But the underside is where I'm trying to get a lot of the shadow colors, the darker colors here. And then wood always has these little, you know, branches and things have these little lines in them. And this side is darker there and darker here. And just add some lines coming from both the left and the right sides. Don't worry about being real perfect. As I said, this is a bit of a blurred bird painting. That's a mouthful. Okay, I'm just adding some other of the other color in there and then dabbing out for some white some little white areas here and there. And if you forgot and you know, just don't feel like you can go back in without disturbing too many other things, you can always just use your whites. You can use the watercolor whites, you can use acrylic whites, you can use artist, what do you call them? Any kind of white, in other words. Any kind of white will work. So you don't have to stress about those sorts of things. That is a little bit darker though. Trying to blend a bunch of colors here. Right in these areas right here. And I don't want to touch what I've got drying here. So I'm using my wrist at the moment. I could use my finger, but right now if I tried that, I'd be putting it into the wet that's still drying from all that. So we're just dabbing here and there to make that wood look old, you know. It's an old branch. And then I will wash off my brush and go into some white. And here and there. And there and here, as Bob Ross, who was my absolute inspiration to paint when I drew for many years. I sketched and drew. That was my thing in the young years. And then I happened to come across his videos, and I'll tell you what, I was literally hooked from that point on. And I did acrylic, as I said. For over 40 years, I did acrylic. I sold paintings. I gave them away. I gave them as gifts. I mean, you know, all that wonderful stuff. It was awesome. And then, you know, there was a point in time where I wanted to learn watercolor. But I kept telling myself, I can't do it. It's too hard for me. It's too involved, etc., etc., etc. And I listened to myself for far too long. Take some color out here. Little white areas that will indicate you can do it with a paper towel as well. But not when it started to dry. When it's getting dry, it's a lot harder to get it out. But there we go. We got some out. All right. As I was saying, I listened to that voice, which told me that I could not and I would not be able to do watercolor painting. So I do have a couple of videos there on my channel that just talk about that journey that I kind of let myself go on, which was listening to a voice that told me I couldn't do it. And then many, many years later, I just was, like, no, I'm not listening to that any longer because I really wanted to. I really wanted to learn it. And so one day, make a long story short, that's what I did. I said, that's it. I'm teaching myself watercolor. And I did. And so now I like to help you guys. Try not to, to help you to realize, don't listen to that voice. If you want to do it, go for it and learn it. It's all about learning it like anything else. It's learning. Just like we learn anything else that we do, watercolor works the same way. I'm just adding in whites here. Okay. Now we're just going to do the pine branches. I just chose to use this, this is a Transcend round brush, but it's a little bigger for what I want to do next, which this is an 8 that I did everything else with. Well, there goes one down. I'll get it later. I'll use this smaller one here, which is a size 6 Transcend, and it's a round. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a dark green here, very dark, and I'm going to add some lighter color to it. And I got a perline green, and then I'm lightening it up with I think that's a sap green. And then I'm just going to do my needles, which are just kind of flicking up, down, straight. It's just, just a bunch of flicking. And I'm using mainly the tips of my brush, just the tips, because they're pine needles, and we all know pine needles are just kind of every which way. So just going to flick them until I get what I feel is, enough for what I'm doing. We're going to add some burnt sienna in there because we want some light ones, we want some dark ones. So we'll add a little yellow to some of it. And really all we're going to do underneath here is, I'm going to get a little darker, is flick them. If you get it on the bird, don't panic, freak out. Just continue on, because the bird's going to be another color, and once it dries, we'll deal with it that way. And we're just flicking onto the left and to the right. Come back over here, because all we're doing at this point is making the pine needles. And there are branches that are overlaying each other, of course. So you're going to have we want some darks in there. So we're just going to, here and there, we're going to add dark areas. Nose is a little stuffy today because we're going to have some nasty weather. And that's how my sinuses work. Isn't that great? I'm sure there's somebody out there that deals with the same thing. I have friends that do as well. Family, All right, and we just want, I'm going in between different greens here and there, crossing them from left to right, kind of downwards, because there's so many pines that we really can't tell where they're coming from. They're just all mingled together, and that's what this is, depicting. So I'm just doing this, flicking with the tip of my brush, coming in and getting darker areas. We'll also add some lighter places too as we go. And like I said, I'm switching up from one green to another green. Just so you can kind of see it as well, because if I keep just doing the same green on top of each other, we're not going to really be able to tell the difference. Go back to some, I have several greens, you know, several of all kinds of colors, different colors on my palette. So we'll actually go into some yellow ochre, and here and there and there and here, we are also going to add that in there. In our flicking, in our putting in our, takes a little while to get all these. You can stop the camera if you like and just come back in a few minutes after I've flicked around a bunch of needles. Pine needles is what they're called. And there's another green, sort of changing it up a little. Let's see. In the background, I'm using for in the back to look like the darkness in the back there is sepia, I believe. And I'm just sort of putting that in different places so that, you know, it depicts some of the dark spots behind all these pine branches. I'm going kind of quick here because I don't want this to be forever. And like I said, for yourself, you can just go ahead and pause it and then rewind, fast forward, whatever. But they all just kind of mingle together. Pine branches, short ones, long ones, thin ones, thick ones. Just, you know, move your brush all around. Get some other colors to dab in there. I'm going into my palette with the different colors that have now merged all on my palette. And just, because remember, this is a depiction of a photograph. It's a painting, so it's not going to look like the photograph so much as it's going to look like a painting, right? So just always have to keep that in mind. Sometimes you have to remind yourself that I'm not trying to do a photograph here. I'm doing a painting, which is what it is. So we've got almost enough. It's all covering the whole. It's as if they're all falling off downwards from the branch. And in a few minutes, we will also add some, whoops, that's not really what I wanted to grab there. I'll grab some yellows to mix in here and there. Lighten some places, little areas up a little with the sun that may be shining through here and there. And I'm really just basically using the tip of my brush, basically. I mean, I kind of go back and forth from flicking to the belly to flicking and so forth and so on. But we're just about done here. You know, make them darker in some areas than others as well, because there's going to be so many of them that are underneath the other ones, so they're hiding underneath, and so it would be darker under there. And then what I'm going to do is come into this yellow and white and kind of mix it together a little. And well, I need it a little stronger than that. And this is where I like to dip into my acrylic. And I have so many, a few acrylic paint colors that I use in the watercolor paintings, because it just kind of stands out more, pops out better when I just want to use something that I want to pop out, but you can see how it's distinguishing needles already, and then go into some whites and do the same thing, just with the tips of your brush. Flick them around. This is where the highlights are happening. So we're just flicking them, flicking it here and flicking them there, and you get the little, you know, it'll, when it dries, you'll see how it appears as highlights in the painting. So that's probably just fine right there. As I said, I don't want to go too far. Some more white areas here on the branch to highlight. I don't want them to be too long, my videos. In this particular time around, I had a channel at one time, but I moved and other things happened, and so I kind of lost it. So I started a new one, and I wanted it to just be for painting anyway. But a couple of things I'm going to do here to fit, because they've kind of gotten underneath. We want to, you know, get that darker side again of the wood. Kind of indicate that a little bit again, because some of the darkness has faded. So like I said, it dries lighter and it dries a lot lighter. So there, I just wanted to establish a few more of the dark areas of the branch. All right, and as you can see, our bird is just sitting there patiently waiting for the next video that I will do to do the bird. But this was what I wanted to accomplish in this one. You can continue on doing whatever you like. You can add more highlights. You can leave it just the way it is. You can darken it more in areas if you want. But we are, as far as I'm concerned, we definitely depicted that that these are pine branches. It's on a pine branch. And in part 2, we will do the bird, the bluebird. So I hope you've enjoyed this one, and you also can make the background whatever you want as well. These are my, you know, depictions, my colors that I've chosen. You can certainly choose whatever colors you like, whatever strikes your fancy, okay? Just because I have these colors absolutely does not mean that you have to. In any of it, it doesn't matter. So check out my other tutorials, folks. There's some really helpful ones, and there's some videos just on encouragement, talking about how I started out in painting watercolor and how I, you know, evolved from telling myself I couldn't do it to doing it. And you can check those out. I'm sure you'll enjoy them. And have a wonderful rest of your day, folks. Bye for now.